In this video, I hope to establish I don't know how to do intros. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. In this episode, I basically intend to just go through everything we definitively know about the first three games, and then try and explain everything about them. There's not a whole lot of lore directly told to us in the original newspaper for FNAF 1 or 2, other than we might get dismembered. There's nothing there. In the FNAF 1 phone calls, however, we do learn about the Bite of 87 as well. What do we learn? That it takes them, 90 days, I think they say? Blah, blah, blah. Filed within 90 days or as soon as property on the premises has been thoroughly cleaned and bleached. So it might take them more than 3 months to clean and bleach all the blood, which just makes me like, why? How long does it take to wipe blood out? Like, they don't have carpets. What are they doing with their life? They need to get better janitors, apparently, Anyway, they then talk about how the animatronics used to be allowed to walk around during the day, the same mode they're left in at night, apparently, but then there was the Bite of 87, which, quote, yeah, it's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, which pretty much dead on implies, not even implies, it tells us that the Bite of 87 victim survived. This is a common misconception I feel like I see everywhere, like, oh, the Bite of 87 victim, they died, especially when people mention, like, the Bite of 83, and try and draw those two together. No, the Bite of 87 victim survived. The Bite of 83 victim, the crying child, died. Important distinction. And it reveals to you as if any of the characters get in, they won't recognize you as a person. You'll be seen as an endoskeleton without its costume on. You'll be stuffed inside a suit filled with crossbeams, wires, and animatronic devices, especially around the facial area. It'll cause some discomfort and death. Only part of you that see the day is death. Is the only part of you that would see the day again is your eyeballs and teeth when they pop out the front of the mask. Something we see is true. And the death screen. Made it to day 2, congrats. They become more active as the week progresses. Freddy becomes more active in the dark for some reason. And then that's when I was power, blind spots, use the door lights, pirate code. From time to time, the character in there seems to be unique, and the cameras remain off for long periods of time because he doesn't like being watched, which is also interesting. Why doesn't he like being watched? He seems to also be smart enough to tell when the cameras are activated, implying they might be like the Among Us cameras. They have lights telling you when they're on and off, which is interesting in its own right. Night 3, he says he's not implying they died. If you need to specify that you're not saying they died, yeah, he probably died, so previous security guards most likely died. If you get caught and stuffed into a Freddy suit, try playing dead, go limp. There's a chance you'll think you're an XP costume instead, but then they might try and stuff an endoskeleton to you. I wonder how that would work. Scratch that, best just not get caught. See you on the flip side. An important quote, so please keep that in mind. Day 4, we basically hear that he's dying. He asks you to check inside the suits in the back room, which is interesting because the back room later on goes to be pretty much, it was revealed to be where William is being stored. It's interesting in its own right, isn't it? I always wonder what was in all those empty heads. It's interesting. And then Freddy's power goes out. Basically, I think in this you hear the sound of every animatronic, but the sound you hear is the sound used by Golden Freddy during this jump scare, which implies that while all the animatronics seemed to be coalescing on him and wanted to kill him, it was Golden Freddy that actually killed him. Night 5 is, I think, like a meme or copy paste or something, so there's not really anything here, lore-wise. It's honestly most of the lore, aside from the newspapers, which we'll get to. There's the FNAF 1 check, which pretty much reveals that Friday was the 11th of the 12th month, but the year is kept out, that we are Michael Schmidt. We get 120 buckaroos, and then the Night 6 one doesn't have anything more. It tells us we get a little bit of overtime, and then it was the 12th, it was the 13th of the 11th. Sorry, I am not American, I don't understand your date system, it's stupid. Yeah, we learn that we get 50 cents overtime for almost dying. That's great. But the main lore of FNAF 1 comes obviously from the newspapers. Although I say the main lore, it's really the And honestly, it really much explains the entire story, right? We learn across 2 different newspapers that 2 local children were lured into a back room by someone in a mascot costume on June 26th. While video surveillance identified the man, he was arrested, but the children were never found and are presumed dead. Police think the suspect disguised as a company mascot to earn the children's trust. It then says that 5 children are now linked, which implies that 3 children disappeared before the 2, and then after catching the man, they realised he probably took the other 3. So 5. So likely they were kidnapped as 3 and then 2. We don't know when the first 3 were taken, though. This is where they confirm that man did dress up as a cartoon mascot. Cartoon mascot, by the way. While the suspect had been charged, the bodies themselves were never found. It's a tragedy. Then we learn that it's shut down over sanitation, or threatened to be shut down over sanitation, because by the health department because of a foul odor coming from the much-loved animal mascots. Police were contacted when parents reportedly noticed that what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouth of the mascots. One parent likened them to reanimated carcasses, pretty much confirming if the bodies were never found, they were stuffed in the suits. Local pizzeria said to close by year's end, which is just when we learn that they had a year worth of struggling. After a long struggle to stay in business after the tragedy that took place there many years ago, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza has announced that it will close by year's end. Despite a year-long search for a buyer, company is unwilling to be associated with. No one is willing to be associated with the company. These characters will live on in the hearts of kids. These characters will live on, which is a quote from the CEO, which is interesting in its own right, because living on is something that's very important to William. So basically, to sum up what we know from FNAF 1, it pretty much comes down to, we know that on the 26th of June. On the 26th of June, 2 kids were taken. Prior to that, it seems like 3 kids were taken. They are then linked. The guy was dressed up as a mascot. He lured them into a back room. Their bodies appear to be stuffed in the animatronics. Phone guy is dead. And the Bite of 87 victim. But the Bite of 87 happened, it survived, and this is the 11th of the. No, this is 12th of the 11th. So we get. Oh, and then where Mike Smith. On to FNAF 2, and honestly, the only lore. FNAF 2 was revealed to be in 1987, and it's also happened to be the 12th of the 11th, and then the 13th of the 11th of 1996. Bit of overtime. Sorry, remember, you get $100.50, and you get a bit of overtime. The pink slip is interesting. So, Jeremy Fitzgerald, this is Fritz Smith. Fritz Smith gets fired on his first day, because it says first day on the job, really. He's Fitz Smith, notice of termination, effective date now, employee number 3, which has a problem. No, he was fired for tampering with the animatronics and odor. We also learned that Mike Schmidt is also fired for tampering with the animatronics, odor, and general unprofessionalism. Just curious. That's honestly all the lore there, except, obviously, for phone calls and the minigames. We'll get to the minigames. Don't you worry, we will get to the minigames. In FNAF 2, we learn. Oh my god. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm using the goddamn fan web again. All these ads are reloading, it's annoying. Alright, night 1. We learn that we're apparently in a summer job. I swear to God. Great, we learn that we're in a summer job. That's facial recognition, match mobility, even though they want to. Honestly, the one phone call has the goddamn nothing. They pretty much mention the same explanations in the first game, which we know is lies. That the music box can be round up remotely. Minor glitch in system. That's again, yeah. Same explanation as the first game, which is a lie. Frankly, we learn nothing. The only thing that's important is that it's a summer job. Great. Hello. See, I told you first night wouldn't be a problem. You're a natural. Older models, great, yeah. Those are from a previous location. Use them for parts. The idea was to repair them. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology. They were so ugly. And the smell, again, dead body stuffed into those suits, implies they were never taken out, which is kind of messed up. Shouldn't be able to walk around. If they do, the Freddy check should work on them. Except for Foxy, the pirate. Foxy is a bit twitchy. The Freddy trick won't work on him. He activates during the night. Him standing at the far end of the hall. Flash a light on him. We're starting to with bright lights. It's interesting that Foxy isn't fooled. And then he says, "Don't." So in this phone call, we pretty much learn that the older models were retrofitted with new technology and now used for parts. Foxy is Phone Guy's favourite, and Puppet is not the Phone Guy's favourite because it's always thinking and it can go anywhere. And that the Freddy Mouse won't fool it like Foxy, which is interesting that his favourite and least favourite animatronics aren't fooled by the Freddy Mouse. Like, it's an interesting connection there. Because even Golden Freddy is fooled by the Freddy Mouse. Did you see Foxy in the hallway? He was just curious. He was here. And then we learn the backstory of the Mangle. They wanted to make a kid-friendly Foxy, put him in Pirate's Cove to keep toddlers entertained, but kids can't keep their hunts themselves. Staff are cheered to put Foxy back together at the end of every shift, so they stopped trying and left him as some kind of take-apart, put-back-together attraction. Now he's just a mess of parts. I think the employees refer to him as the Mangle. And then here we hear about rumours. Apparently local stories come and go, so I don't mean anything. Whatever's happening out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment. It's just rumours and speculation. People trying to make a buck. Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual. Oh yeah, in the FNAF 1 phone call we also learned that the first guard complained about conditions he got through his first week, and also that he was moved to the day shift. So he's the guard being mentioned here. People trying to make a buck. That he's reported nothing unusual. He's on from opening till close. Night 4. And there's an investigation going on. It's just a precaution. Fast Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen. As a side note, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems. So here we learn seemingly that whatever rumours he's talking about are presumably the things causing this. Like, they're fine with kids, but they stare at adults. They act unusual, almost aggressive. Then in Night 5, it gets really interesting, because in Night 5, we learn that the building is on lockdown, especially to any previous employees. We may be moved to day shift. A position just became available. Don't have a replacement field shift yet, but we're working on it. We're going to try and contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place is Fredbear. Here we hear about Fredbear's Family Diner, probably telling us the Golden Freddy was Fredbear. It's been closed for years, though I doubt we'll get any one there. So basically, just that Fredbear's Family Diner exists, and it was the original restaurant owner where these characters must have come from. Oh, and they're on lockdown, and previous employees especially. And it's implied that the specific previous employee they don't want in, is the day shift guard, who is seemingly our predecessor, or the predecessor of whoever these phone calls were intended for. And I'm going to make that distinction in just a second. Then on Night 6, he's like, the place is closed down, what the hell are you doing there? Or what on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? At least for a while, someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. It's safer than to try and leave in the middle of the night, just to try and survive. We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday, which is weird if the place is closed down. You'll be on the day shift, wear your uniform, stay close to the animatronics, and make sure they don't hurt anyone, okay? For now, just make it through the night. When the place eventually opens again, I'll probably take the night shift myself, okay? Good night and good luck. That is very interesting. So that's... Oh, and then I have FNAF 3. Sorry about the probably sudden pause. I had a slight adventure with the FNAF wiki sucking every dick imaginable. But we're back. I found transcripts, so they... And yeah, we learned pretty much nothing from Phone Dude's first phone call. That there's some stuff happening. We just learn how the place works. We learn some drawings, basically we just learn that we've been working here a while because welcome back for another night. And that apparently they changed the layout of the place. It opens in a week, and we have to make sure nothing catches on fire, which is a genuine risk because faulty wiring or something. Hey man, okay. We learn they found one, a real one. His general Lycan man, which he works Lycan man into the way he speaks, and he's fairly young and fairly new. He refers to vintage audio training cassettes as prehistoric, prehistoric. I think they were like training tapes for like other employees or something like that. So yeah, that would imply that he is young, and also that the training tapes are very old. Like if when it is 30 years after FNAF 1, so like 2023, right? I mean, I would probably see a training tape and be like, I've never seen this in my life. How does this work? This is like ancient technology to me. I mean, like, I grew up with like DVD video games, and even like I'm probably the odd one out there because there's a lot of people in my generation probably don't even know what a DVD is. My younger siblings, especially like my 2-year-old youngest sibling, will never know the absolute annoyance of trying to watch a film with DVD and it being smudged and ruining the film, or having to clean a DVD so you can actually get it to work to play the game you want. Because of the advancement of technology. Good for them. But yeah, like, honestly, they would probably even be like, a DVD, what's this? This is old technology. So yeah, roughly would imply he's probably a fairly young man. And he seems to be in charge of the place as well. At least in a higher position, which, like, is weird for someone so young, maybe in his 20s. But then I guess he's trying to put together, like, a horror establishment. And then we hear from Phone Guy, and honestly, all we learn is that they have... Right now we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit, which tells us they have the Fredbear's, no, not Fredbear's, the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is where he introduces us to. In Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, there were two Springlock suits, which were probably intended to be Spring Bonnie and Golden Freddy or Fredbear, but no, they can't be. But we'll get to that. Yeah, all we really learn is that animatronics go to where the sound is, will walk towards sound cues in order to basically make it easier to keep animatronics where the people are, for maximum value. And then there's a hand crank to make them suit mode, gives suit barely enough space to fit inside, with all the animatronic parts being moved to the side of the suit. The spring locks in the suit, take a moment to position your head and torso. Try to not press any of the spring locks. Do not touch spring locks. Don't breathe. Any moisture will loosen them. Cause them to break loose. Spring locks come loose when you're wearing a suit. Please try to move it away from completed areas before bleeding out. If there's an emergency, please note there's a designated safe room. Every location is built with one extra room that's not included in the digital map layout program in the animatronics or security systems. This room is hidden to customers, invisible to animatronics, and is always off camera. Which is probably where William murdered the kids. Hello, there's been a slight change in company policy concerning the use of the suits. Don't. After learning of an unfortunate incident at this location involving multiple and simultaneous springlock failures, the company has deemed the suits temporarily unfit for employees. Safety is our top priority, which is a lie. Interesting. The classic suits are being retired to an appropriate location while being looked at by our technicians. Until replacements arrive, you will be expected to wear the temporary costumes provided. Keep in mind they were found on very short notice, so questions about appropriateness, less relevant, should be deflected. I repeat, the classic suits are not to be touched, activated, or worn. That said, we are free of liability, do as you wish. Reminder of company's policy regarding the safe room, reserved for equipment and other properties not being used. It's a backup safety location for employees only. Not a break room, should not be considered a place for employees to hide or congregate, and under no circumstances should a customer ever be taken into the room. And out of the main show area, management has also been made aware that Spring Bonnie animatronics have been noticed to be moved, which implies that where they were put was the back room, or at least in that location. They've moved, and would like to remind employees that the costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances. And then night 6, we'd like to inform all employees due to budget restrictions, previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed in most locations, including this one. Workers will be here most of the day constructing a false wall over the door face. Nothing is to be taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. As for other sources of lore in FNAF 3, I mean, there's the opening and closing newspapers like FNAF 1 and 2, but there's pretty much no lore there. The only really lore in the opening newspapers is that FNAF 2 is a reopening. And then this is a horror attraction based on the restaurant, not an official restaurant of Fazbear Entertainment. So far, the final. Well, we'll get to the timeline. The ending newspaper, the only really lore there is that if you write in it, Springtrap's in the background telling you that he survived the fire and he'll be back. Otherwise, I mean, it burnt down supposedly because of faulty wiring, but authorities have not ruled out foul play. Burned down overnight. Very little was at the scene. The few items salvaged will be sold to auction. And yeah, the implication with Springtrap in the background is that he'll be back. He will And so that's honestly all of the lore. There's no paycheck in FNAF 3, so we can't guarantee that it was on the 12th of November, like all the first two games, 12th and 13th, and obviously on the days before. Like with the other games, which is unfortunate, but oh well. Let's talk about lore then. Let's just start with FNAF 1 because it's the easiest. FNAF 1 has very little lore. It's pretty clear. Guy kills children. Guy gets arrested for making children disappear. Is charged with the crime. Formally charged with the crime. Guy. And then Kid Souls possess suits. Suits attempt to kill employees. There's very little left open. It's really just the It's Me of Golden Freddy and what happens to Phone Guy, right? What becomes of him? There's also apparently a secret screen. In fact, not even apparently, there just is. There's a secret screen with the endoskeletons where all the heads look at you, and the endoskeleton looks at you also, or looks at the camera, which is you, and he has the silver eyes, or the same eyes as Bonnie, right? The black with a white pupil. That's really just the main questions left in FNAF 1, and honestly, the answers. The answer to Golden Freddy, right? We don't know fully, but I would say that the answer to Golden Freddy is just that he's clearly someone important, right? He was either a childhood friend, maybe a child of the protagonist's son or something, because our guy keeps coming back, so there must be a reason, right? Maybe it's really either sibling, childhood friend, or child, as far as I'm concerned. They're the only, they seem most likely for why someone would keep coming back, for why it would be so important to be like, it's me, it's me, it's me. There are other theories, like the time travel theory that Golden Freddy is us after getting stuffed in a Freddy suit from the future, but there's really no evidence for that. Or really most other suits, or really most other theories about Golden Freddy. The only other theory is that it could be Phone Guy, hence it's me, because he's telling us it's him, Phone Guy. But I don't, based on what I think the answer is to the second question there, I don't think he's actually Golden Freddy, because I think he's Endo 01. It's pretty clear Endo 01 is possessed. I mean, he moves on his own. He's in the room with all the other heads. He stares at you with silver eyes. This is not my theory. I saw it on Reddit. I would credit them, but they've deleted their account, so unfortunately I can't give them credit beyond it was a post on Reddit. They tried to answer the question of the Endo 01, and the face, I don't know, the official room. It doesn't seem to be a very well-known secret in the fandom and theorizing community. I don't think I've ever seen someone try and come up with an explanation for it, like an official theorist try and come up with a solution on it. Certainly not Rytoast or Matt. I've seen a lot of that videos. And I feel like Rytoast would have at least mentioned it in his whole Cassie's dad is the shepherd inside of Glamrock Bonnie theory, because it feels like something you could have at least mentioned that would have been super interesting, but and that pretty much foreshadows what I think the explanation is. I agree with the theory that the person came up with on Reddit. I think that the people inside the heads are previous security guards. I mean, he mentions specifically the facial area, right? Especially around the facial area, there's all these animatronic devices, and so you would die. And what happens in the secret screen? All of the heads are possessed and look at you. Great. As for the endoskeleton, well, I think it's also a previous employee. I think it makes the most sense to be Phone Guy. I mean, he actively mentions that, yeah, you could try and play limp, but they might think you're a dead suit and would stuff an endoskeleton inside of you. It is so obvious that it's Phone Guy, really, when you think about it. And sure, you could argue maybe someone would have heard that after the fact, but why would it be some random nobody security guard when it could be Phone Guy? I get that he says scrap the idea and try and survive, but if he knows he's going to die, he might as well try a different method, otherwise he's going to be stuffed in a suit and die. At least maybe being stuffed with an endoskeleton, well, probably more painful, you'd at least die quicker, maybe, as opposed to slowly dying inside a suit with all kind of devices and things around. I don't know. But it makes sense to me that he'd at least try, because we know he came up with the idea. It seems like really good foreshadowing for what becomes of him. So yeah, I think Phone Guy is just Endo 2, Endo 1, and therefore, obviously, he's not Golden Freddy. And if FNAF 1 was a game on its own, that would be a complete story. Guy kills children, guy gets charged with a crime that's presumably put away from a law for a long time, possibly the rest of his life, or maybe even given the death penalty, since this game does take place in America, presumably. Or at least the game's creator is American. Well, the guy is punished, and his children's souls continue to possess the suits, and Phone Guy is our mentor. He ends up dying and is stuffed inside of. and it's stuffed inside with the endoskeleton, with all the heads being previous security guards, and us staying there because Golden Freddy is possessed by a childhood friend, a son, daughter, sister, brother, whatever, someone who died as a child along with the other three. And that's the complete story of FNAF 1 right there. That's all the lore questions I can think of for FNAF 1 as well. So on to FNAF 2. Now, in FNAF 2, there's another source of lore that I intentionally left out of my little lore section, mainly because they're ambiguous, vague, and also bring a lot more questions than answers. But they are the 4 minigames: Foxy Go Go Go, Save Him / Give Gifts, Give Cake to the Children, Save Them / Save Them and then Give Gifts Give Life. And then Give Gifts Give Life, which, just going through all of them in order. Give Cake to the Children is the most obvious. Some children are being entertained at a Freddy's location, seemingly. Lead by a Freddy with a cupcake, which is interesting in its own right. That at some point Freddy had the cupcake, and it was later given to Chica. This Give Gifts to the Children. Sorry, what was it? Yeah, Give Cake to the Children. Give Cake to the Children. We see Purple Guy, he steps out of his car, he kills another kid, and then we get a puppet jump scare, implying that this is the kid who possesses the puppet. Great, excellent. So now that's easy, that's great, so we can just move right on to the next one. Next up, we have Give Gifts Give Life, which again seems fair. It's telling us there's a connection between the puppet and, so basically in Give Gifts Give Life, puppet goes around, gives gifts to children, fails, gives life by giving them masks, and then a 5th body appears. You go to the mask, you get a Golden Freddy, FNAF 1 Golden Freddy, I believe, jump scare. Which is interesting in its own right, isn't it? Because it implies that the puppet in some way, shape or form gave these animatronics life, helped the souls, which becomes a problem later on. We're not talking about the future games yet. Save Them is also obvious. You walk around as seemingly Freddy, so probably Withered Freddy, because we see Toy Freddy. We're Withered Freddy, we're walking around, we see a fellow animatronics and all that. That game ends many ways. Work, jump scare. You hit Afton and it crashes the game. And whether you can't, you can walk into the dead children's bodies, that ends the game. You can walk into the mangle, that ends the game. You can walk into Golden Freddy, that ends the game. That's all the ways you can end the game. But pretty much you see that there are 5 dead kids scattered around, and we're told to save them. We're lured by the puppet. Bit Afton comes in and basically, usually will dismantle you. There is actually a way to dodge him, but it doesn't matter for the lore. Basically, it just seems to be telling, and it's clearly the FNAF 2 location. So basically, it's telling us that at the FNAF 2 location, 5 more kids were murdered. And then Foxy Go Go Go. And Foxy Go 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 is interesting because it either has no lore at all or some massive lore implications that are just horrible to imagine. Because while the animatronic jump scare at the end is with Foxy, which could just tell us that, hey, in the original Missing Children's incident, William killed 5 kids, he put them in front of Foxy, he smiled for some reason, and then, he happened to take the 5 kid bodies and stuff them into the suits. Great, excellent, right? Except the problem is the model of Foxy. I mean, obviously it wouldn't look withered, but it also doesn't really look like who I would assume was originally, the 6th version of Withered Foxy, the pre-Withered Foxy. I'm just going to call them the pre-Withereds because original feels wrong because they aren't technically original. The FNAF 1 would be original, but then they aren't the lore original. The FNAF 1 animatronics, I don't even know why I was calling the FNAF 1. Maybe pre and post Withered, there we go. So presumably, this could be pre-Withered Foxy, and he just also had Pirate's Cove. He's entertaining children. Or it could be post-Withered Foxy, because he does have the same kind of link animatronic. He has his endoskeleton legs. And it doesn't line up, like, if it's the first Missing Children incident, or I guess it could technically, like, like the first Missing Children incident appears to be that Afton kills 3 kids and then he kills 2, and he stuffs them inside the suit. There's no world in which Afton could have put all 5 kids in front of unless he dragged them out of the animatronic. Like, it's so convoluted. Like, how could he have done that? So I don't know. Like, is it symbolic of something? What would it be symbolic of? Maybe Afton making fun of Michael, who's Foxy Bro, like, look what you've done, you did this, see these bodies and people I've killed as punishment for what you did to your brother. But it's it's not good, and it wouldn't make sense at the time of FNAF 2 being created. Like, I don't know what Foxy Go-Go is trying to tell us, because we get a FNAF 1 jump scare out of Give Life, so it's like, with it, like, again, either it's nothing, and I'm overthinking it, and it's not fine, we can ignore it, whatever, or there was a third missing children's incident happening at the actual FNAF 1 location, which would make sense with the Pirates Cove and all that. But then it doesn't match the layout of the building, it doesn't match, like, the layout of the building in FNAF 3. It's yeah. Did I mention the FNAF 3 minigames? William lures the children to him, lures the animatronics to him, dismantles them. The children's souls come and he gets spring locked. And then there's also Happiest Day, which again I probably left out for similar reasons to the FNAF 2 lore minigames, right? That you go around, in these various mini games, you find a secret hidden kid, give him a big old cake, and then you play as the puppet in the final. You walk past 5 children with 5 masks that some think reflect the mediocre melodies, but it's like one has a blue mask that doesn't match. One looks more alligator than frog. Like, just because it's green doesn't mean it's a frog, you know. Like, one doesn't have a trunk. Like, the orange one doesn't have a trunk, I'd assume, or the wood. Like, you pretty. I don't trust that at all. And then yeah, Mia walks above it. You go to these children with their masks of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. You walk up. The child at the end gains a golden Freddy mask, and all the souls are released, and the mask pulled to the ground. The puppet slightly slower. We also see the puppet in FNAF 3 alongside the Phantom. So, and then, like, you get the obviously various endings, one with the mask with lights in, one without the mask and lights in. Great. Now, while FNAF 1, 2, and 3 don't really have much environmental storytelling, there is one piece I want to talk about, and that is specifically the Bonnie that appears. So there's a bunch of pictures at both the office and in the corridor on the cameras. You see through both cameras and the office the part of the image. The bottom half that's in the office that's cut off is a bottom of a face with a creepy smile that I swear I have seen in fan arts of William Afton, like the exact frame. In the other half, we see that it's actually a photo of Bonnie, but it's not like the other photos of Bonnie. It's significantly more human looking. It's a lighter blue. It's got dark eyes, a white iris, and then a black pupil, which would indicate, which is different from the eyes that Bonnie has in the game. Which, again, he's different from the other pictures of Bonnie, so that's maybe it gives the impression of, like, oh, maybe William already knew maybe Scott already knew that William would be would be associated with Bonnie, would be in a Bonnie mask or suit or something. Because he did have nightmares about Bonnie as he was making the games, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me. The other games don't have much environmental storytelling. I mean, there is the paper plate piles where you have Freddy, Chica, Bonnie. Oh, sorry, no, you have Freddy, Bonnie, and then some guy with, like, blue and red colouring, which is odd because that's obviously not Chica. So was there at some point another band member? I mean, possibly, but we would have no idea who that is. Otherwise, we see that there are still parts of the toys left in FNAF 3, in the box, the guitar and all that. I mean, there are probably some more pictures, but there's not a whole lot of environmental storytelling. So, but maybe, like, again, in FNAF 3, we do learn that there are. Yeah, we learn that there were apparently Springlock suits at Freddy's, 2 whole Springlock suits. So maybe there was a Bonnie, like just a regular Bonnie Springlock suit, and then a Freddy Springlock suit, based on the kind of grey Freddy that we see in, the grey Freddy that's clearly not like Shadow Freddy because it's not purple, and it's not really Golden Freddy because Golden Freddy should become the same colour as Springtrap. So it kind of makes sense to me that, like, oh, maybe it's like a grey Freddy that's it's like a Springlock Freddy, maybe. That's all the environmental storytelling. So what does it mean? What does it all mean? What does it imply? Well, that's the thing. I have not really come to a satisfying conclusion on what Foxy Go 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 is, but we'll come back to that. That's the problem child, okay? All the others seem to make sense, well, in the context of their games. Once you start getting bigger, wider, like, lore from the rest of the games in the books and all that, it starts to become a problem, but it's not a problem yet. So let's just talk about the FNAF 2's main lore. Let's talk about who caused the Bite 87, because that would be the main question. Who did it? Who done it? Honestly, and who done it? I mean, it's pretty much either the Mangle or Toy Chica. Like, there's no evidence for anyone else. The Mangle goes straight for the forehead, where the frontal lobe would be. So that's pretty much, like, he's got the whole, his voice box, or his radio, whatever, going, we've got a little boy here, but, like, apparently Scott said that has no law relevance or something, but, like, that's only hearsay. Like, I haven't seen Scott actively disavow it, so I don't know. That's, like, I would say the Mangle is the most likely candidate, except for, at least at the time FNAF 2 came out. But because, and it has to be one of the FNAF 2 animatronics, because it's confirmed to take place in 1987. And honestly, I don't know, it's honestly, like, the most. But we do have Ultimate Custom Night. And Ultimate Custom Night tells us that Toy Chica has the voice line that goes, "Where's my beak? Inside your forehead, of course." Which would at least, like, indicate that she caused the Bite 87. Right, and we have seen, like, Glamrock Chica, we saw how her mouth can open and, like, try and bite Gregory, which she did at one point. So, like, when I had a jump scare at one point, I believe that was a jump scare at one point, or maybe a point in the game where they're fighting. Anyway, point is, it seems at least somewhat likely that she could have caused the Bite of 87 if she can open her beak in that way, or maybe she lost her beak and shoved it in someone's forehead. However they want to describe the Bite of 87. And, like, the bite doesn't seem welcome. She also can't take off her, like, beak and get, like, a mouth kind of area, so she could have caused, like, an actual bite with, like, a mouth. Whatever the Bite of 87, we know that, like, whatever, like, it seems confirmed. Like, I mean, in my forehead, of course, isn't really more evidence the Mangle going directly for the forehead. So it could it could be Mangle or Toy Chica. It could be either. It doesn't feel like there's a direct solution to anything. In AR, I believe the Mangle has voice lines that don't really give you anything, just that they're annoyed that their pieces keep falling off, and he says, like, "I'll make you beautiful like me," and then she never gives any indication that she's actually the one who caused the Bite of 87. And so, like, whereas in Toy Chica does have an active line, unlike the Mangle, which, you know. So, I mean, I guess it's difficult really to say either way. It could be either. It doesn't. I don't feel like there's a direct confirmation at all, honestly. But it's Mangle or Toy Chica, and I would say at this current time, Toy Chica seems like the most likely candidate. The Mangle is all circumstantial, and really has no actual evidence. At least Toy Chica is an intended line, which seems to be answering two mysteries, like, why is she losing her beak? Maybe it can be removed because people saw it as a threat after the Bite of 87. And also that she's the one who caused the Bite of 87. So for now, I'm just going to say Toy Chica did it, because what else am I supposed to say? It's the most confirmed thing we have. It's not, like, there's nothing really pointing towards the Mangle. At least there's something pointing towards Toy Chica. So, as for who got Bite of 87, well, a lot of people think Jeremy Fitzgerald, but that would imply that he is the one being. Like earlier, I said very specifically, the person these phone calls was intended for, because I don't think they were intended for Jeremy Fitzgerald. Because, right, what does he say in the phone calls, right? Right, there was the first guy, and he got transferred to the day shift, and then he left. He got fired, seemingly, got fired and is probably the one who did the bad thing that's causing all the rumours based on the no previous employees allowed. And the guy on the day shift mysteriously gone. A position just became, and he awkwardly leaves a pause and goes available, which tells me that he wasn't just fired. The guy on the day shift was bad, probably Afton. So that's the first guy, probably Afton. He's already fired from the company. You then go to the second guy, and he's clearly and he's the one these phone calls are obviously left for. He stays in the building at night during night 6, I guess it would be, and then seemingly gets bit, right? Because they're like, we have a party tomorrow. You need to stay there. Be in your uniform. You'll be on the day shift. Stay close to the animatronics. It seems likely that he gets bite of 87. The phone guy then says that the place will be closing down. The party is the last event. So it seems like even at the last event of this place, there's another tragedy. Someone gets bite of 87. He manages to survive, but loses his frontal lobe. The place closes into the beginning of the game, where we see a newspaper saying grand reopening. It's not a grand reopening of Fazbear's in general, it's a grand reopening of this specific Freddy location. Which people should be like, it actually makes more sense. They do say vintage pizzeria opening, so there's room for interpretation, but unless this was also a previous Freddy's location that was then changed into FNAF 2, which does not. Phone guy says quirky and modern design of the building, so it wouldn't suggest that this is a previous location they're reopening, that it was a new building built specifically for this purpose, so for the purpose of being a new fresh start. So we can at least logically assume that the grand reopening is in relation to FNAF 2, especially since we're told the place will close down. And also, I can prove that the person the phone calls is left to is not intended to be Jeremy Fitzgerald, because we're welcome, and that the place was closed down, because he welcomes us to our summer job in the first one, I guess. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, on the paycheck, we're working the 12th of the 11th and 13th of the 11th. Basically, we're working in November, winter, completely opposite side of the year, really. Time of the year where it's super sunny and warm, summer. Time of the year where it's really cold and wet, winter. We are literally the two opposite seasons. It does not suggest to me that it doesn't suggest to me that we're playing as the same person, and that the phone calls are clearly intended for someone before us, because we're working a winter job and they're clearly working a summer job. And he tells us the place will be closed down. So it's closed down and reopens. We then work in November. It's closed down for most of the year, also most likely. And then Jeremy Fitzgerald comes in after night 6. And it seems like he just takes it. But we learn then after a few weeks of the place being reopened, it closes down, the toys get scrapped, but the originals will be stuck on to potentially get refurbished and, put back on display. Also, Phone Guy's alive and not dead, so pretty clear FNAF 2 is a prequel. Also, because FNAF 1 mentions the Bite of 87, and this game takes place at the end of 1987, so it kind of has to happen after 1987. Meaning that FNAF 1 is definitely 100% a sequel, and I feel like everyone knows that, right? FNAF 2 is a prequel. I feel like that's known, but might as well mention that here. Fritz Smith gets fired for tampering with the animatronics and for odor. Mike Schmidt is fired for tampering with the animatronics, odor, and general unprofessionalism, which is, interesting connection between the two. Interesting. Wonder if that means anything. Is it just a joke? No, it's not. There's strong implications that these two are the same person and are also Michael Afton, based on, I believe, the Employee Survival Handbook has links to FNAF 2 with the carousel and links to FNAF 1 in some way, shape, or form. And then obviously shows that Mike Schmidt knows all about Sister Location. So great, Mike Schmidt, Michael Afton, and Fritz Smith are most likely the same people. Yeah, I'm sure people have probably put that more eloquently than I, but that's not really what I'm here to discuss, at least not for now. Probably not until Sister Location or something, that theory. For now, I think the timeline is that William Afton comes in, he works the night shift. He complains about conditions, Probably because we know that parts of the older animatronics were used to refurbish the newers, so seemingly it would basically work like remnant transplant, where now like the souls are split between two animatronics, with most of their soul being in the wizards, and just a little tiny bit being in toys. My guess is he manages to survive. Like, we know that the Spring Bonnie suit must be in a back room here. My guess is he manages to survive by putting on the Spring Bonnie mask, effectively using it like a mask. He'd still have his light. It seems like the music box was added after the fact, but maybe William would know a way to soothe or deal with the puppet, or maybe it just can't attack him because it's his and or Henry's creation. It pretty much has to be. So maybe it already has systems in place where it can't attack him, which is why the music box doesn't need to be there for him. Music box is the only real problem that supposedly the box was added. But either way, apparently the first guard managed to survive, and I don't. It feels like it makes more sense that Afton would know a way to survive, even without the Freddy mask in place. Probably because he's using the Spring Bonnie head, which honestly might be more authentic. So maybe he gets in the full Spring Bonnie costume, and then the animatronics can't harm him. He gets moved to the day shift. He then obviously lies that nothing's out of the ordinary, but rumors happen that kids are going missing again at this location, which they are because William's killing them. He leaves all the bodies there, and my guess is their souls obviously would go into the toys, except, interestingly, that there are only 4 toy animatronics, excluding Balloon Boy and JJ and the puppet, all for their own reasons. The puppet is the one leading us around, being told to save them, so it doesn't feel like it's getting possessed. Balloon Boy and JJ never attack us, they don't show signs of being possessed. Also, we know who the puppet was possessed by, so unless the puppet has 2 souls, which I don't think is likely, I think the puppet is its own thing with 1 soul. We never get implication there's another soul in there. And then Balloon Boy and JJ, the story of the puppet carver from Fazbear Fright seems to suggest that they are just literally living wood and not like animatronics, they're not possessed or anything like that, which is great for us. But it kind of means that, like, sure, the soul's split out into the Mangle or Toy Foxy. Although by this point it's already the Mangle, and like, I did the math right. If he worked his full 7 days, then was moved to the day shift, and then the guy the phone calls were left for was hired, which makes sense. And there's already an incident mentioned on like the 3rd night, and then that means prior to the 10th night they would have had to have died, meaning it would have had to have been like the 9th night at the latest. Which means that by the 9th time the Mangle was torn apart, they were just like, we're leaving it. And like the Mangle is also, I believe, mentioned prior to that. We know all these phone calls are happening over the course of a week, because phone guy repeatedly mentions night 1, night 2, night 3, night 4. So we know that all the phone calls are taking place Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday over a week to one person, and they're not like spread over time. Which means we know that if Jeremy Fitzgerald's happening after the grand reopening, he can't be the one being told to be near the animatronics. So it just must be whoever the second security guard was. Great, so we've identified the White 87 victim as the second security guard. Alfred Smith is likely Michael Afton. The first security guard is likely William Afton. And we are Jeremy Fitzgerald. And what does Phone Guy say he's going to be doing after the place reopens? He says he'll work the night shift after the place reopens. And you know what that means? Jeremy Fitzgerald, finally, once and for all, is Phone Guy. He's working the place after it reopens. And you might ask, why would Phone Guy listen to his own phone calls? But don't you worry, I've already thought of a solution. First off, there's a mute button in this game, so who's to say that canonically Jeremy Fitzgerald didn't just mute them because he already heard them because he recorded them. But 2, maybe he needed to be reminded how to survive. Both of those explanations work, so there you go. Makes sense, right? The place closes down, it reopens. He listens to his phone calls to survive, or he mutes them, but we know the phone calls were left for someone working a summer job. And we know that our guy is working a winter job in November. So, can't be the same person. He must be after the grand reopening. And he says after the grand reopening, he's going to be working there. Therefore, he is Jeremy Fitzgerald. Which is honestly really nice, because it means we know everything we need to really about Phone Guy. We know that he seemingly dedicated his life to working here from the Springlock days to the FNAF 1 days, and that, honestly, he dies, he possesses Endo 01, and seems like he never had a family or anything. He never mentions anything like that. And his name was Jeremy Fitzgerald, so we know really everything we need to know about him. That he probably started work here as a young man, worked his way up through the ranks fairly early on, dedicated his whole life, and died and became O1. And his name is Jeremy Fitzgerald, so there we go. Very nice. It's really nice to have a full story. Really just makes Phone Guy like open and closed. By then, like, he's dead, and that's him off the table, we're done. Which is nice. Nice. That's all you honestly really need to say about Phone Guy. There is one slight discrepancy with this theory, and that is that Fritz Smith is noted as employee number 3 on his pink slip, but also I don't actually think that matters too much. And I know I just made a big deal out of it being November and him saying summer job, so why does this not matter? Am I picking and choosing evidence? Am I a bad theorist? Well, yes, but I do at least think I have a reason. Yeah. And first off, it's just worth pointing out he wouldn't be the third employee. Like, it doesn't make sense. There had to have been 1, 2, 3 Fritz Smith. Fritz Smith can't be Phone Guy because it's told he's on his first day of the job. Phone Guy clearly isn't, so he can't be Phone Guy, so it can't be like we're Jeremy Fitzgerald and we get by 27, then we come back after it reopens and then it's Fritz Smith Phone Guy. No. So unless like it's just wrong about Phone Guy becoming the security guard when it reopens, like also Jeremy Fitzgerald got by at 87 during the day shift, so if the place reopened, he'd still be on the day shift, even if he did come back to work. So like that at least tells us that like he's still here. But that actually provides an explanation. I mean, there are a few explanations, like maybe he's just employee number 3, like that's his official employee number. Maybe each employee is given a number, but like a tag so they don't use personal information or something, or it's like the tag of his file or whatever, so the company knows like get rid of this file or but put it on this file that he's no longer an employee here or whatever, or maybe he's the third employee to get fired, one being Afton, another being. Also, there's, I mean, like the other explanation, and my best is just that. What was it? Okay, never mind. He could be the third employee to get fired, I guess, because Afton, some other guy. Because I mean, it's worth pointing out there would be like kitchen staff here, whether they'd be working in the kitchen. You'd think there'd be more people. Or it could just be that with Afton already fired, there could only be 3 people working maybe the security gig, right? Like there would clearly be chefs and waiters and stuff, but maybe they don't count, they have their own numbering system, whatever. So maybe those security guards have their separate numbering system. William's already gone, and with this being a shady company, maybe they destroyed the file or something. So it's like, oh yeah, no, we have our first security guard, the Bite 87 victim, we have our second security guard, Phone Guy, and then we have our last security guard, Britt Smith, and he's the third one, so he's employee number 3, he's getting fired. That is technically the implication that maybe we do place Jeremy Fitzgerald on 97, and this pink slip is the pink slip of William Afton when he got fired, and it's like Fritz Smith is the name of the first security guard because he was fired. Maybe it's just, and then maybe he would be employee number 3, third to be hired, third to be fired. Maybe there were just 3 employees, like a chef, Phone Guy, and him. But, well, no, because there would be the person the phone calls were left for, the Bite 87 victim anyway. So I guess it would be, yeah. Both of those explanations could work. I think there is more evidence to suggest that Michael is Fritz Smith, so it makes more sense to me that he's just like, yeah, they only have 3 security guards at this point in time, because William's already fired and they destroyed his file to erase evidence, so whatever. That's why the 87 victim solved then. It was likely the second employee here, the person working before Jeremy Fitzgerald, and was likely done by Toy Trigo. Who's the White 87 victim? Well, I was initially going to say maybe Phone Dude, because he's like, he's making a mockery out of murderers, or out of murders, and trying to turn it into a real location. He's incredibly, like, happy about the fact, or he doesn't really care about the fact that there could be a fire. And I believe one trait of, like, psychopaths or sociopaths is that they do have a bit of a fascination with fire. Or at least when as children, and if he lost his frontal lobe, he would be a psycho or sociopath, so he would probably, he'd be without empathy, without emotion, maybe. He'd have a complete change in personality. But Phone Dude is likely incredibly young, maybe in his 20s, maybe even a teenager. And, like, by this point in time, if the Bite 87 victim was, like, a teenager in 83, we'd be talking about 23, that's like a 40-year gap. So he'd have to be in his 50s, if not later. It feels incredibly unlikely. Did I say 83? Well, yeah, because 87, which, like, a 30-year gap still. He'd be in his 40s, if not early 40s. He'd be in his 30s. No, he'd be in his 40s, if not early 50s. There we go. So he can't be Phone Dude, so they're just 2 separate people. I could see a world, though, in which he's maybe the Freddy bully from FNAF 4. You ever consider that? I mean, he wears a Freddy mask. And, by the way, the gameplay of FNAF 2 would be exactly the same for Jeremy Fitzgerald and for this guy, so we can use that as evidence. I mean, Freddy mask, He wears a Freddy mask. We also see that Freddy is walking around during the whole save them minion, and like, where's the security guard? Maybe we're seeing how the animatronics see him. And it's like, oh, that would also explain why it's a fixed Freddy, or like, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of evidence, but it's slightly more interesting than just the by-base victim being a random nobody who survived and then never went on to do anything. And being the Freddy mask also feels like it makes sense if William is in control of the toys, which I guess leads us on to our next theory: William's in control of the toys. Because throughout the phone call, we hear that there seems to be two incidents, right? One that's happening out there that's tragic, but not related to our brand, most likely a second missing children incident. Then we hear that someone apparently used a yellow suit, and now none of the toys are acting right. But wouldn't that be the missing children incident too? But how could the missing children incident happen twice? It can't have. But throughout all of the throughout like the books and movies, we see that William does have a way of controlling the children. Now, usually this is through children inside the FNAF 1 animatronics, but we never see evidence that William can control them in game. I think that's because it's a red herring. They, in the games, the FNAF 1 animatronics, are not under his control. But you know who is? The FNAF 2 animatronics. And the evidence for this is actually like pretty strong. I mean, think about it. You've got, because I think what he did was he inserted his agony into them, maybe even part of his soul alongside that agony. Or maybe like the agony in FNAF, the games, has the ability to hold sentience of whoever created it, or whatever the exact like wording is. Or like the exact mechanics of it. William pushes his agony into the animatronics because Toy Chica has the silver eyes, which could just mean she's possessed, but it does involve them going black with a white dot. And then not all the toys can do this. So Freddy, I mean, the Mangle doesn't really do that ever, but Freddy, his eyes go black, but he has two dots in them, grey dots. Not the same silver eyes as Chica. His dots are both slightly grey because they're reflecting light. Right. So this wouldn't imply he's possessed. It would just imply that, like agony makes things black is how it's implied in the books. So if William did fuse his agony into the robots, like the eyes going black would be a representation of that. And then also, obviously, biggest evidence for this, that William at some point fused his agony in them. Shadow Bonnie. I mean, it's a shadow version of Toy Bonnie, not just some other version of Bonnie. So it's like, why is Shadow Bonnie here? How does that work? If he looks like Toy Bonnie, and Shadow Bonnie is pretty much at this point confirmed to be made by Dark Remnant, which is either the game standing for agony or maybe some fusion of agony or remnant. We'll get to that. Actually, well, not in any of the theories I plan on posting soon, but I have a video I'll probably do on what Dark Remnant is. I think it's probably a fusion of Remnant and Agony, or maybe Agony and Possessed. We'll get to that. Well, not today though. But whatever Dark Remnant is, it probably is linked to Agony. So someone will have to put their agony inside of that animatronic, and we can't just assume it was the missing children instant, because then why wouldn't every animatronic have a shadow version? So I think what happened is William comes in Spring Bonnie suit after having killed the kids. He doesn't hack their security systems like what Phone Guy says happen. He goes in, he infuses the toys with his agony. And this agony, maybe with even shards of his soul, allows him to control the children inside the toys like he does. Using the Spring Bonnie suit like he does the FNAF 1 animatronics in both the books and the film. This gives William the control over them. As for where they end up. I mean, we know that obviously they would have ended up inside the toy Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica. But where would the fifth one have ended up? Couldn't be the puppet, couldn't be Bloom or JJ, as I mentioned earlier, which I never actually resolved, so my bad. So how did he end up inside? So who did he end up inside? Well, there's Endo 02 throughout the game. Originally I was trying to make this whole thing about Endo 02, but I couldn't really make that theory fit. I was too obsessed with being an employee of Fazbear, like Endo 01, being Phone Guy, obviously. Obviously, because I've proven it, my theories are always correct. Yeah, obviously that's what I believe because I mentioned it earlier in this video. But I don't think so. I think that Endo 02 is a kid. Now, Endo 02 doesn't attack, so it's a bit of... But consider that Endo 02 does appear ghostly. He appears in the puppet's corner. Only when the puppet is gone, he appears, I believe, in one of the vents. Instantly can't attack, and we know that, and I do think the fifth soul was stuffed inside of Golden Freddy, because that feels like that makes sense, right? William is a murderer, he's a serial killer, he's establishing a ritual here. He's killing 5 kids and stuffing them inside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy. And Golden Freddy doesn't have a toy version, so he kind of has to be stuffed in there. Maybe he's Shadow Freddy, but I think that's unlikely. We'll get to Shadow Freddy. I think that he is Endo 02, and because we know that the older animatronics were retrofitted with new technology, which I imagine includes Golden Freddy, because in FNAF 1, Golden Freddy looked completely different. So it would imply that Golden Freddy was also being fixed up in FNAF 1 until they kind of realized, oh wait, this guy isn't, this animatronic isn't, this is a Springlock, we can't be using him. So they cast him to the side, put him in a back room, whatever. Which then would imply to me, at the very least, that he would also have been retrofitted in FNAF 2. So that's where I think Endo 2 is retrofitted into him. Obviously, you can't stuff a kid inside an endoskeleton, but they stuff him inside the suit. And also, the suit is already possessed by probably Crying Child and the one you should not have killed. So it's already cramped. So instead, imagine he possesses the new technology, Endo 2. And while he probably still attacks using Golden Freddy, and he occasionally leaves the suit as Endo 2, and that's when we see Endo 2, who is a later addition to the game anyway. And that's why he can't attack you, because he's a later addition. But he is almost certainly possessed, the way he kind of pops in as this hallucination. Almost the same as kind of the hallucination head, or the giant Golden Freddy head that can sometimes attack you in the corridor if you're not careful. Which is definitely a hallucination. As for what Shadow Freddy is, like I've already established, I think Shadow Bonnie is specifically a failed version of William's Own Experiment, or maybe even an early version of Glitchtrap, right? It fuses his agony into the toys, but maybe he goes a bit too, I think there's a level here where, Toy Chica is the perfect one, and that's almost why in Ultimate Custom Night he's then represented by Toy Chica. Perfect fusion of, part of his soul and powered by agony put inside the machine. That's what she represents. Mangle maybe is just a straight up failure, or maybe he never tries because there's already a dog soul in there and a kid soul, so maybe he's oh, I don't know if I trust that. But then, I believe he didn't put enough soul into Toy Freddy, and that's why Toy Freddy doesn't have any soul parts. He just has the black eyes of agony. And then he infuses and then he puts maybe too much soul and not enough agony into Toy Bonnie, creating Shadow Bonnie as a separate entity. Okay. And if that's so did he also try and do this with Golden Freddy? No, I don't think so. Maybe he took out Endo 02. I think that would make sense, because Golden Freddy doesn't have an Endo. Makes sense to me that he would have taken out Endo 02, which may be why Endo 02 appears then in places. But the soul's still linked to the Golden Freddy suit, and I just don't think he would have tried to infuse his agony into it, especially if he knew Crying Child was in there, which is the implication, right? Also, it's worth pointing out that the agony of Golden Freddy is different from, Shadow Bonnie, which would at least imply they may be created or generated by different people. Said I think the agony of Shadow Freddy is just the agony of the one he should not have killed, the Crying Child, maybe even the fifth soul, or the third soul inside the suit, fifth soul, the second missing children, whatever. I think it's a combination of, it's either one of their agonies or a combination of all three, or two of them, or whatever. It's a combination of their agonies, which is why it's more of a physical suit, whereas in because it might be intentionally created as opposed to Shadow Bonnie, which was an accident, which is why it's more ghostly and less purposely generated. And it's just an embodiment of agony for these spirits, most likely. And then we later see then in FNAF 2, Shadow Freddy lures the animatronics to William to be torn apart. And while this ultimately blows up in his face, the implication would be that they're working together. But I don't see William generating I did see a video title. I haven't seen the video, but the title is "Is Shadow Freddy William's stand?" But I don't see a world where he creates a stand. JoJo reference, obviously. I've never actually seen it, but I've heard it's good. And I know the basic idea of what a stand is. I don't see the world where he generates a stand and it's anything but Bonnie, though, which is why I think Shadow Bonnie is early version of Glitchtrap. Shadow Bonnie's maybe the one in control of the toys, the one making them malicious, but then the kids' souls are not aggressive to children. And again, that would then mean that the Bite of 87 probably may be done by William. William's like will through his agony or whatever. And if not like further links to if it is the Freddy bully, it makes sense that he would want to inflict suffering upon the person who killed his child, which we know he does to Michael. And it seems like later, maybe in Help 1 or 2, maybe that's what he's doing to, or the Mimic, whatever, is doing to Bonnie Bully, because he's dead. But we'll see. See, when we get there. So, beyond. So, yeah, I think Shadow Freddy helping William implies to be that Crying Child has to be there. It makes sense to me that his son would help him. The one you should not have killed obviously wouldn't. And I don't see I guess maybe the fifth soul is one of the toys, and he has control over all of the toys. Maybe he does put some of his agony. No. Then maybe the fifth soul is helping him through the form of Shadow Freddy. But that feels unlikely to me. Yeah, I think it's unlikely to me. I think it makes sense to be Crying Child. But again, it could be all three of them. It could be if Golden Freddy is a shared suit between all three of them, or whoever Golden Freddy is at least, then it makes sense to me that his Shadow version would also be a suit that's shared between multiple of these souls. So past the I think that explains the White 87, the timeline of FNAF 2. Obviously, it's a prequel, but the timeline of the interworkings of that year, 1987, with FNAF 2 location. What the shadows are. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. No, because the puppet carver or wood carver, puppet carver, explains BB and JJ. The puppet. Oh yeah, the minigames. Yeah, the one minigame I didn't have an explanation for. Foxy Go Go Go. Could mean nothing. Could just mean you're great. William showed them in front of Foxy. Foxy entertained audiences at some point. Or it means that there was a third missing children incident at the FNAF 1 location, but he killed them all in front of Foxy, or in a room adjacent to Foxy. So, and then stuffed the kids. We know he left them out during the events of FNAF 2. Again, I'm not saying there is a third missing children incident, not saying there isn't either, because I don't know. And on to FNAF 3. And FNAF 3, pretty easy. It's directly said in the Steam description that it takes place 30 years after FNAF 1. And FNAF 1 likely takes place in 1993. At this point, Fazbear Entertainment since 1993. Obviously, we know Fazbear Entertainment has gone back further than 1993, so it makes sense to me that this is a tongue-in-cheek reference, FNAF 1, the first game, the one that started this all, it was 1993, on the coins in VR and VR2. Beyond that, the main storyline to me, the main point of where in the timeline did it happen was William's Springlock failure, and we know it must have happened prior to FNAF 1 because Phone Guy dies in FNAF 1, and he also gives the order to seal the rooms, and the rooms would have to be sealed after William's Springlock incident because he's Springlocked inside the room, and was using the room as a hiding hole. The timeline of the phone calls is it's really stretched out. It's basically from William's Springlock incident all the way back to when Springlock suits were still in use. So there's a massive range of time between those phone calls and cassette tapes and all that. But yeah, William just must have been Springlocked prior to FNAF 1 because prior to FNAF 1, Phone Guy dies and he has to die prior to that because Phone Guy gives tells everyone that they're being sealed. The walls are being sealed. And yeah, that's pretty much that. It means that William. It actually means that during the events of FNAF 1, if we are playing as Michael Afton especially, then it's really ironic that William is actually literally sealed off in a back room during that game, and that Michael, who's probably looking to erase the sins of his father, is literally there while his father is struggling for life in a back room, in great pain and in need of help. Or maybe by this point he's already Springtrap, and a Springtrap would be in the back room. Funny thing is that he'd probably keep walking into a wall because he's attracted to noise. So if there's any noise coming from, if any noise can get through the fake wall that's in front of the door, which is described as a fake wall, not just a wall being built, so it's probably not that strong, then maybe there is just sound coming through, and he just keeps walking into the wall, which is kind of a funny idea. Really good fitting punishment for the murderer. It feels. He got his just desserts in the end. And then obviously becomes Springtrap for FNAF 3, 30 years after FNAF 1, which is, great. That's that. What do I think happiest games? Well, to be perfectly honest,
if Foxy Go 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 is telling us there's a third missing children incident, then I think the 5 happy souls who were in colour during the events of FNAF, during the happiest day, right? Minigame, we walk through all these people in happy costume, one seemingly having an alligator mask. And the alligator mask one, by the way, if you look, like, he's sitting at the front, and at the end of it, like at the two ends of the room, you have alligator mask and Golden Freddy mask. If alligator mask is Andrew from the books, maybe, then what if Andrew from the books is like actually a missing like child incident victim, like the third missing children's incident victim who is stuffed inside of Golden Freddy, and this is like a parallel. Like, oh, here are the ones from FNAF 1. They've already been set free, which would make sense, right? Because if the animatronics are refurbished and redesigned for FNAF 1, then they have a lot of new technology. So if kids were possessing them, they'd possess the new technology. When William tears the suits apart to get this technology, he clearly doesn't take all of it. For example, Freddy's like light up features, but he might take the new endoskeletons, which have the 5 souls in. So they might already be freed and burnt and whatever. Maybe they're even the ones who get him springlocked. Then the one you should not have killed. Then Puppet enacts happiest day, stays behind, which way his mass falls slower, her mass falls slower, and then and then all those souls are set free, and that's why there's only one light. But that's assuming that there is a third missing child incident. Which, to be fair, like it doesn't not have evidence. Again, Andrew potentially being like is confirmed to be inside the Golden Freddy suit based on the dark hair inside the story of the new kid. I didn't. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. We'll get to that. Then there's Mike and Chip from the story Into the Pit, who are presumably are victims of that missing children incident, because Oswald goes back in time, he meets his people, the one time he doesn't see them is the one time, the missing children incident victims, kids are laid there. So, Mike, Chip, Andrew. The other two are harder to get. I mean, Pete, like in all of Fazbear Frights, right? The only story to do with Foxy is Pete, and he dies because of Foxy, so like it's a stretch. And technically that's because of like his Andrew's agony, but oh well. So it would, but like, oh, maybe that's just a name, right? Like, and I guess Chica, Susie, has a sister called Samantha, and that is all about Chica coming to get Susie. So maybe it's a symbolic sisterhood in being stuffed inside of Chica. That she's the younger because she died later. She's not literally her sister. It's symbolic. So yeah, I mean, those are the best names we have if there is a third missing incident, but missing children incident. But honestly, that can go either way. So it would be, I think it would be Chip to Freddy because I mean Chipper and Sons, yeah. Right, like Chipper and Son, right? I mean, Chipper was the key face of that game. So someone called Chip literally being killed and like stuffed inside of Freddy could symbolically be how Freddy had to take over, right? And hell, I mean, there was even going to be a beaver, but Scott decided against that because he didn't want it to be defined by an older game, Chipper and Sons. So maybe Chip being possessed inside of Freddy, right? Literally being stuffed and then his body being consumed inside of Freddy through decay is like, because Chipper and Sons decayed and Freddy took over. And they're both the mascots, so it makes sense that Chipper goes inside of Freddy. Michael Afton, right? William's associated with Bonnie. Just feels like it makes sense that someone called Mike would be inside of Bonnie. Samantha obviously would be Chica. Andrew would be Golden Freddy. So just like by process, and then Pete would be Foxy because that's what he's associated with. So it's also kind of process of elimination that Mike would be inside of Bonnie. That's if there's a missing children incident for FNAF 1, which I honestly think could go either way. There could be, there could not be. I think I'm going to leave that for the fans to debate, and we'll see kind of where people lie on that. And maybe if Scott and Steele will see that debate, maybe they'll try and answer it in a future game, or a book, which would be nice. But I could see a world. I could definitely see a world with Foxy Go 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 because it doesn't match the original. And how do I know that the newspaper is talking about the original missing children incident? It's because they say that the place. They don't mention FNAF 2 or anything like that. The newspapers just mentioned, like, hey, this guy was arrested. He was wearing a mascot costume. And again, like, we also just know that seemingly, like, timeline-wise, if we assume the cassettes are in order, which we have no reason to assume they're not like William gets spring locked after the whole. William gets spring locked and sealed in a room after he's like, spring body animatronic has been noticeably moved, and don't blow customers back there. And yeah, it feels like that would be in line for the. I guess I can't prove it's not. FNAF 1, but actually, no, I can prove it's not FNAF 1 because the FNAF 1 would be Foxy Go Go Go. Well, I guess it could be the other way around. It doesn't really matter, okay? Like, that's FNAF 1 jump scare and Word Foxy. It doesn't matter which way round it is, really. Honestly, if there is a third Mr. Jonas victim, it doesn't matter. Because the third Mr. Jonas victims would pretty much be there for FNAF 1. Not even for FNAF 1. They'd be there, they'd then be destroyed, and like by FNAF 1 it would literally, again, they would have been removed, and whatever William did with that remnant he did, and then they would be refurbished into original animatronics from FNAF 1, the post-Withered animatronics, and they would be the Missing Children incident. So there's literally no reason to have a third Missing Children incident, but this franchise loves doing things for no reason, so, like, what can you do, I guess? No, like, it wouldn't surprise me if Scott did that just to be convoluted, but considering the fact he won't even tell us anything about the second Missing Children incident in FNAF 2, which we know for a fact happened, that those animatronics are possessed by a second set of dead kids, like, it's not likely that there even is a third one, and that we'll get any information on it if there is. I just think it makes more sense for the newspaper clippings to be talking about the original dead kids, because because by this point the FNAF 1, the third set of dead kids wouldn't even be here. So it makes sense that the ghosts have to be the ones showing the newspapers, so why wouldn't they be showing their death? It makes sense. Also, Foxy Go Go is happening in the FNAF 1 location, and it doesn't line up with what happened in the newspapers, so likely William just killed the kids, left them in Foxy Go Go Go, and the souls just found their ways to suit. Maybe it's the puppet who showed them the suits. Maybe it's not. Because, to be fair, we do know the original set of missing children also, like, thanks to leaping forward in the game at the timeline, although it helped on it too. I mean, we see, the puppet died after the 5 victims, so how could it put their souls inside the suits? It could be talking about the toys, or maybe the FNAF 1 ghosts. FNAF 1 souls, maybe, and that the original set of souls actually died before Puppet, and the Puppet maybe helped the toys and the second set. Maybe it didn't help the toys, maybe it only helped the second set. Who knows? Not me. Let's see. Also, the names for the toys. I guess we should probably do. In the FNAF books, in the novels, there's a second set of dead kids, which is, well, not even dead, kidnapped kids. Now, they're freed by Charlie and her friends, but also, are them, but also, in the games, maybe they're not. And then the best we have, so I believe their names are, well, let's start with I think Casey is likely to be one. If I remember, the names are, there's Ron, Jacob, Lisa, Alana. Is it Alana? Elena? B. Okay, just checked, and yeah, it's Alana. So yeah, Alana, Ron, Jacob, Lisa are the names of 4 missing kids. There could also be Jessica, because she is also kidnapped, and while she eventually helps save those kids and is saved herself, obviously, because she's kidnapped, maybe she wasn't. Also, the other option could be that it could be Casey, maybe, but we'll get to that from the first by first, but we'll get to that, because he is helping kill people and lure them to Golden Freddy, and maybe that feels more in line for someone who's helping Afton, and he is pretty much confirmed to be a ghost possessing the suit, because the end of the story reflects the beginning, but it's slightly different, proving that even though Casey died, he doesn't find his body inside the suit, and because the FNAF 2 kids were never stuffed inside the suits. They're just left for all to see. And that he seemingly was helping, and obviously the toys would have been helping Afton. Also makes sense how we see O2 leaving, the end of O2 leaving the Golden Freddy suit like Casey does. Obviously, should we trust the names of the missing kids from the novels? I mean, not really, but they're the best we have. And also, it is worth pointing out that the names inside the graphic novels, them pretty likely. You have the only name that's not correct is. So you have Michael Brooks to Golden Freddy. You have then Susie and Fritz to it's never told who, anyone but Michael Brooks. Michael Brooks is confirmed to be inside of Golden Freddy / Shredbear. No one else is confirmed to be possessing. We don't know who they're possessing. We just know they are possessing suits. So we have Susie Fritz, which we know are actual names. A dark-haired, striped-shirt kid who is never actually named in the novels, but in the graphic novels is changed in design completely, and is called Gabriel, which we know is also correct. And then there's Cassidy, the other soul, who then is proceeded to not, who is definitely not possessing Golden Freddy, because Michael Brooks is, but we don't know who. But then they get changed up for Jeremy in the actual the game confirmed names. But we can at least kind of assume that the names of the other set of missing kids could be the toys, and it's the best we've got. So how about you just deal with it, okay? Hey, cut me some slack. Other, and that's pretty much honestly every major theory, right? FNAF 1, very nice close story. FNAF 2, I think I've solved. FNAF 3, I mean, great, you get spring locked prior to FNAF 1. FNAF 1 happens. FNAF 1 happens. Yeah, and then 30 years pass, and well, Film Guy dies, and then FNAF 1 happens, and then 30 years pass, and then you get to FNAF 3. Which is nice, it was great. The timeline is pretty easy at this point. The only really parts are, like, you have to work out the internal timeline of FNAF 2, but FNAF 2 definitely is just the earliest game out of these three. And then FNAF 3, the only really part you have to work out differently is, when does the Springlock suit happen? Obviously, we could work out what happiest day actually means. But it's clearly like all the souls are being freed, and in my opinion, it's just the souls of the missing kids. That makes sense. You have 4 missing kid souls, plus another kid murdered by Afton Charlie. So, like, or the puppet spirit at this point. So, like, it feels logical this is the one you should not have killed. I don't think it's crying child or anything like that. Miscellaneous extra theories that aren't like massive mysteries, but that kind of are there. The main other mystery to me is that there's another secret Freddy in FNAF 3. There's this kind of like grey Freddy. He's almost the same color as like if you brighten the suit to the Springlock suit in this location. It's kind of the same color. So maybe it's a prototype Fredbear. It's not Shadow Freddy, because Shadow Freddy is purple both in this game and in FNAF 2. In this game, Shadow Freddy is also capable of walking. He doesn't really look like Golden Freddy. It's also put out you see Golden Freddy. Oh yeah, you see Golden Freddy and save them, which would imply that one of the souls went to Golden Freddy also. As for who this worn-out suit will be, we know it can't be the actual Golden Freddy suit. Mainly because, well, the teeth don't match really either of them. Especially not Golden Freddy. But, like, also the colour wouldn't match. Like, we know what a yellow suit eventually becomes after this much time, because Springtrap is literally that. And that's, so it could be maybe a different Shadow Freddy, maybe a different type of suit altogether. I don't really know. It feels like it would be Shadow Freddy, then it's not, because the colour scheme doesn't match. It doesn't have the dots in its eyes. It's clearly possessed, because it can appear and vanish at will, seemingly, and then it doesn't harm you. It's kind of neutral. Again, it has is it another creation of agony, a different Shadow Freddy? What's happening here? What is this thing that just appears and vanishes? And what does it mean? What does it imply? Honestly, I don't know. I just think it was supposed to be another Easter egg, like the Shadows, like Golden Freddy, that was supposed to have a mystery, and the fandom just never really cared, so Scott didn't bother explaining it. I don't know, maybe William murdered someone else and stuffed them inside yet another Springlock suit. Maybe it's not the Springlock suit from this location. It doesn't have the face plates. It doesn't have the face shape either. So I don't know. Maybe it worked alongside the Springlock suit from this location though. Maybe there were 2 intended Springlock suits, and then one of them got scrapped, and that's this. And maybe he injected the. Actually, yeah, okay, yeah. If there is a third missing children's incident kids, I'm going to say that their remnant, all their endoskeletons was all melted down, and their remnant was ejected into this, and it was a prototype Springlock suit that never got used, so that's what William used it for. And it was more like, maybe it was a prototype Funtime Freddy, and then it's still around, and then, but because it doesn't have dots in its eyes, it's just the agony of the kids that were put into it, and their souls are now free, or burnt down at the end of the game and are free. But then obviously the other souls needed to be freed by the puppet, and so that's what that is. If there's a third one, otherwise I don't know what this is. Otherwise I have no idea what this thing could even be. So at this point, I actually hope there is a third missing children incident, because it would then give me an explanation for this. Like, yep, this is just where William put those souls, and then the souls were burned out of it, and all that's left is agony. And that's fine, and that's cool, and that's good. Or they're freed when the fire happens at the end of the game. Whatever. Or maybe it's just one of those terrible cosplays mentioned at the beginning of the game. other theories, what are the phantoms? Really, that's, I think, the last question. I'm trying to think through all the questions of all the games. I guess what happened to the mangle as well. In my opinion, the reason why the mangle is gender fluid is because it's literally the combination of an endoskeleton, which could be anything, and then the toy Foxy, which could have been male, but then there were 2 female voice boxes, but then who knows how many parts were added to the mangle. They describe when Fun Guy is talking about Foxy, he only ever refers to it as male, by the way, but maybe he has a female spirit, which could also explain that. That's what I think happened. It just got fused with an endoskeleton. It also is likely that toy Foxy likely had a parrot. That's why there's a second head that doesn't match the Endo 02 design at all, because it got fused with extra spare pieces, and then also had a parrot that was the head. Great, and that's what the mangle is. Great. Okay, cool. What's the phantom? The phantoms, in my opinion, are they help William, right? They're ghost-like, they help William, they interact with technology. Most affect the ventilation system after jump scaring you, meaning they're not caused by the ventilation system failing. And also, some don't even cause the ventilation system to fail, so it's not like there's a 100% link. Some seem to cause an audio or visual. I believe it's the mangle causes an audio disturbance. Is it Puppet who causes a visual disturbance, or does Puppet affect all 3 of them? I forget. Point is, I think that they're clearly something ghostly. They can't be the souls that stood against William and got him springlocked. Maybe they're souls of the and they don't. Most of them don't take a toy form, except for the one, except for Mangle, Puppet, and there's no Bonnie, and then there's BB, who we just established was not possessed. Frankly, I think the way it is that I think William generated them. I think that it's Agony generated them. We know Agony can generate creatures like Eleanor from the books. And that Agony can also be used to bring life. And that's why I don't think the shadows are necessarily just Agony. Maybe Dark Remnant is something else, because they're established to be Dark Remnant, but maybe not. Maybe they are, or it's all Dark Remnant. I think that William generates the phantoms out of sheer agony after being springlocked, and that's why they're maybe not in FNAF 6. He runs out of juice, so to speak. He can't continue to fuel their existence. It also explains why there's no Bonnie phantom. It's not the souls helping him. It's literally he sees himself, right? Like in the books, it even establishes like he sees himself, and that's why there's no Golden Freddy phantom as well, because he sees himself as the Bonnie character, and the phantoms are there to help him, and that's why they help him. They're helping him with his ruse. Like in the books, he almost is like kind of mentally ill, or like he believes he is Bonnie. Sometimes he won't even speak without the mask on. So it's like, I think that's what's happening. Is he's like, at this point he's been fused into it, and maybe the pain has driven him crazy, but also the pain is generating all these other characters to kind of help him. Like, yes, he's the Bonnie character. That's why the toys aren't here, because he is the Bonnie character, and the toys are just like the characters in a different coat of paint. And that's why Bonnie's not here, besides just the fact that... Well, because also, like, Phantom Chica has pretty much the same jump scare as Springtrap, like, stepping to you. It would make more sense if this was, like, Phantom Bonnie, because then, oh, you'd think you got jump scared by Springtrap, but actually, no, if you weren't, like, paying attention kind of thing. But no, he's just not here. So, I guess that's that. That, I think, is the logical explanation for the Phantom. I think it makes the most sense that he's literally generating... And that's why I think Souls and Agony are kind of on the same level, where like they're both forms of energy. Like souls are energy, that's why they can kind of teleport and do all these special things. Phantoms, like generated by agony, are the same. Agony is an energy source, as are all human emotions, because agony is just the best. Yes, and then maybe that's like he runs out of juice, and then they're not in FNAF 6, or he just can't be bothered with generating them because it didn't help them the first time, or maybe there's not technology that they can mess with, whatever. And then maybe like Dark Remnant and Remnant are like, oh, here's what happens when you add energy sources to consciousness, to souls, to metal, whatever it is they're doing. But that's for another theory. And then, yeah, whoever this secret Freddy is, this grey Freddy, I don't know. There it is. He's either... I personally like the idea that he is like, just Remnant injected into prototype. Maybe a prototype Funtime Freddy that never got made because he realised that he didn't want them to be Springlock suits. But... or just a prototype Springlock suit in general, or an extra Springlock suit. Maybe this was one of the original... Actually, yeah. I think that makes more sense. This was one of the original Springlock suits from the original location, the Springlock Freddy. And that logically, maybe... Who was the other Springlock suit? I don't know. I mean, FNAF 2, he describes the suit as a golden one in the back. and then describes it as Spring Bonnie in FNAF 3. So either some guy's feigning ignorance, or maybe the Springlock suit wasn't a golden Springlock suit, it was a different Springlock suit, and there was another Springlock Bonnie that would be in character for William. But then who this other Springlock Bonnie would have been, I do not know. But maybe this could be a Springlock Freddy that then was eventually scrapped once they no longer needed Freddy, or once they no longer were using Springlock suits, and that he just simply injected maybe the remnant of something or other in here, or infused it with agony or something. Again, if there is a third missing children incident, then I think that's where he took the, Also, we never see Golden Freddy, but I don't think that means Golden Freddy wasn't dismantled. I think he dismantled Golden Freddy, took the Endo prior to the Follow Me mini games, and then melts them down, and then fuses them into Springlock Freddy, and that's what we're seeing here. And that's why he kind of fades down and becomes kind of grey, and because it's Freddy's brown, kind of fading to grey and dirty over time. That's just that could work. That's otherwise he's infused with agony, or maybe it's the remnant of the original Missing Children, or the remnant of the toys, or the agony of the toys, something like that. And then their souls are freed at the end of the game. Prior to Happiest Day, which makes me think their souls are freed when the place burns down, or maybe were already freed. And then Happiest Day is the freeing of the other souls. And Andrew isn't the one he should not have killed, because the one he should not have killed is demonstrated by FNAF 1 Golden Freddy, and therefore would be the original Golden Freddy kid, which makes more sense to me. And his name, I believe, would be Michael Brooks, alongside Susie, Fritz, Gabriel, and Jeremy. And yes, I do think his name is Michael Brooks and not Cassidy. He's confirmed to be he, and while Cassidy is a gender-neutral name, let's just say I have another candidate for who Cassidy is that I think makes more sense with the evidence of the logbook and also the evidence of the stitch ray. That's not for this theory. One final question then exists among the games. We now know that William can't that William is forced to go towards sound. He's not an idiot. He knows what he's coming after. It's literally just the fact that you're playing the audio cues. He can't control himself. He can't fight the suit. The suit moves there based on its programming. Oh, great. So we have all the explanations. The only question we don't have an answer to. Not even a question, it's just a theory that I want to talk about because I think it's super interesting. In FNAF 2, there's the Paper Pals. One is obviously Bonnie, one is obviously Freddy, and the other is just this human looking. It's just a guy with a smiley face and a dot for a nose.